Coming to you with this week's Big Tech Gut Check, a super quick weekly update on all things social media and big tech. First thing we're going to talk about today is Snapchat's super lame more Snapchat ad that ran at the Super Bowl. In case you missed it, Snap Inc. is trying to distance themselves from the bad press around social media companies. Also, the federal investigation for child exploitation, the U.S. Surgeon General's warning, and the lawsuits. Overall, the fact that social media is harmful for kids. So they're running a campaign telling people that we are not social media, even going as far as to say, less social media, more Snapchat. What's sort of poetic justice about this campaign is that their Super Bowl commercial was voted #1 least effective by Forbes, stating that the ad did not convince viewers that Snapchat is in fact not harmful. Now over to TikTok. A research group called the Center for Countering Digital Hate recently reported on the amount of harmful posts on TikTok. Specifically, they found 11 billion views on pro-eating disorder hashtags and 589 million views on videos promoting harmful steroids. So what did TikTok do in response? They removed the visibility for us to see how many times hashtags are being viewed. So now researchers are unable to calculate how many times users, our kids mostly, are exposed to harmful content on TikTok. This is not a new move. TikTok has continually withheld data about content related to online harms. If you're going to offer a platform targeted to kids, shouldn't parents have visibility into how many harmful posts our kids are seeing? Next up, social media executives are squirming in their very fancy little seats today because there's been positive momentum on KOSA. For those of you who don't know, KOSA is a bill that fixes a lot of social media functionality that harms our kids. If this passes, big tech firms will be required to make their platforms safer by design. It would give minors tools to restrict collection of their personal information. It would disable addictive product features. It would allow minors to opt out of the algorithmic recommendations and would hold the platforms accountable through annual and independent auditing. For decades, big tech has been able to act freely without any restriction and also been able to grade their own homework. They don't have to answer to anyone, and they're not required to make the platforms safe for kids. And this is why KOSA is sorely needed. So this week, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced his support for KOSA, and also several LGBTQ+ advocacy organizations dropped their opposition. This bill is bipartisan, meaning that it has support from both sides. KOSA has 62 co-sponsors in the Senate, and as of this week, it's close to passing. I'll keep you updated on KOSA as we get closer to finally having regulation to protect our kids online. Let's head over to New York. I reported a couple weeks ago that New York City Mayor Eric Adams called social media a public health hazard and an environmental toxin. At the time, I had expressed that this may just be talk, but this week, Mayor Adams took action. New York City has filed a lawsuit against TikTok, Meta, Snap, and YouTube for fueling the nationwide youth mental health crisis. New York City is alleging, as are 41 U.S. states and over 200 school districts, that social media companies intentionally manipulate and addict young users, basically that they promote addiction in kids. I think what we're seeing here is a nationwide movement to hold big tech accountable for what they're doing to our kids. We've had enough, and it's got to change. Now an update from Meta. Meta announced they will no longer promote political content on Instagram or Threads. A Meta executive stated, quote, "The company does not want to proactively amplify political content from accounts you don't follow. Our goal is to preserve the ability for people to choose to interact with political content while respecting each person's appetite for it. Many users who share political content have fled to X to start sharing the information there. But the problem is that no one knows what Meta defines as political content. Meta has been asked for a definition of what they are considering political content, and so far they're ignoring the requests." A writer at The Atlantic shared, quote, "Especially in an election year, politics is not some neatly confinable element of life. It's intertwined with culture, pop culture, news, and everything from tech to business to health and science. So we're not really sure what posts specifically Meta will be restricting. Despite this update, Meta is still making money from political ads, earning over $4 billion in political ad spending since 2018. Last update for this week, and this is important. New research has been released around how often young Americans are hanging out. By that, I mean spending time with other teens. The stats are pretty shocking, but not surprising, given the amount of time young people spend on screens, which is a solo activity. Between 2003 and 2022, American teenagers reduced their average hours of face-to-face socializing by 45%. There's no record of any other period in US history where people have spent more time alone. This is very specifically lining up with an increase in rates of depression in teens and hopelessness and suicidal ideation. So you can deduce that more time spent alone, more time on their screens, is playing a role in how depressed they are. Whether you're a kid or a teen or an adult, we need face-to-face interaction. In fact, it's this in-person connection during adolescence that helps our brain develop. This is the building blocks of a child's emotional and social and cognitive growth. And the disconnection and the loneliness starts when we're kids. We're giving them iPads when they're babies, which just encourages disconnection. So parents, let's stop giving our kids tablets at restaurants. Let's stop putting screens on in the car. Let's stop defaulting to screen time and talk to our children. I know it can be the easier option, but it's causing problems for kids and teens as they grow up. It starts when they're young, and it starts with parents. If we want our kids to be strong and confident adults, we have to stop defaulting to screens every time. That's it for this week on the Big Tech Gut Check here on Scrolling to Death. I'll see you next week.